I woke up to find $200,000, my entire retirement, vanished, siphoned by the man I once loved. Before dusk, my son and his fearless wife morphed into digital bloodhounds, tracing my ex from smoky casinos to back alley hideouts. What began as a private nightmare ignited a courtroom inferno that made Vegas blink and sparked a nationwide revolt against elder fraud. Hey there, precious souls. Lorraine Washington speaking. Some call me Lolo, others just call me the stubborn old lady who refuses to quit. Before we dive headfirst into my tale of betrayal and sweet, sweet justice, let me greet each of you properly. Tell me, from which city are you listening tonight? Drop your hometown in the comments and let me know the time on your clock. I swear it thrills me every single time to see our little family stretching from Seattle's misty dawns all the way to Miami's sleepless midnights. Now, lean a little closer, because if you stay with me till the end, you'll hear the secret move that turned an empty bank account into a victory worth more than the stolen 200,000. Believe me, you don't want to miss that twist. I didn't see it coming myself, and I was living it. I was 69 the day I realized the man I once vowed to love had robbed me blind. Picture a rambling, honey-colored bungalow in Baton Rouge, sun-bleached shutters rattling like brittle bones each humid afternoon. That place was supposed to be my quiet harbor, paid off, neat, edged into white azaleas, mortgage slip tucked safely under the cookie jar. Instead, it became the stage for my ruin. The call came at 3:15 p.m., July 11. Funny how your heart stamps the exact hour into your ribs when life detonates. The bank's clerk sounded apologetic yet detached, reciting policy like a grocery list. Mrs. Washington, the withdrawal was made in person with all proper documentation. Yes, it cleaned out the CD, the savings, even the emergency fund linked to your debit card. My knees betrayed me, buckling before I remembered pride, and I sank onto the kitchen linoleum, still sticky from peach preserves I'd canned that morning. $200,000. The words pulsed behind my eyes like neon. Every dime I'd saved teaching third grade for 37 years, tutoring on Saturdays, pinching coupons like a second religion. Gone. Because Clarence Washington, my ex-husband with the charming gap-toothed grin, had forged my signature and sashayed right out of the branch, whistling Amazing Grace. Clarence and I had parted civilly. No fireworks, just the cool hiss of two dreams turning down different roads after our youngest moved north. We split the house's equity clean. I kept the pension, he kept the boat. That should have been the period at the end of our story. Instead, he wrote himself a brand new chapter, one starring my money and his greed. I'd like to tell you I cried. That would be gentle, ladylike. But truth? I roared, plates clattered in the sink, the old beagle under the table howled back, and somewhere deep inside a furnace door slammed open. The flame of betrayal licked higher than a Louisiana August. Yet even a furnace needs fuel, and fury alone doesn't buy groceries. I called the police, filed reports, froze what little remained. They nodded, took copies, promised to investigate. Weeks crawled by, paperwork piled high, leads ran cold, and pity in their eyes grew warmer than any progress. Enter my boy, Marcus. 33, all shoulders and soft eyes like his late granddaddy. He'd moved to Atlanta with his wife, Ava, MBA brain, gospel choir voice, building a digital marketing empire from their apartment's spare closet. We spoke every Sunday, but I hadn't breathed a word of Clarence's heist. Maybe shame silenced me, maybe a mother's instinct to shield her child from darkness. Either way, the truth spilled out one muggy September evening when Marcus noticed the tremor in my hello and refused to hang up until I confessed. Silence hummed on the line, thick, electric. Then, "Mama, pack a weekend bag, we're coming." 3 hours later, headlights swept my driveway like a search party. My baby and his bride marched through my front door armed with laptops, determination, and enough righteous anger to ignite the bayou. They set up a war room on my dining table. Ava's fingers flew across keys, tracing bank IP logs, digging through purchase histories, mapping Clarence's movements like arrows on a battle plan. Marcus phoned cousins, ex-co-workers, anyone who might know where Clarence laid his slippery head these days. By dawn, they had him triangulated to a fishing retreat near Lake Charles, really a downmarket casino with enough neon to fry a moth. He'd been cashing chips for weeks, living like a king on money meant for my twilight. The retreat's owner owed Ava a favor. Surveillance tapes materialized in our inbox, showing Clarence strutting at the blackjack table, pockets sagging with $100 stacks. That image, My ex chuckling over cues of colored chips, throttled any lingering affection I'd saved for him. Let's get it all back, Ava whispered, eyes glinting like polished obsidian, and make him hand it over in person. My pulse drummed agreement. FOMO whisper for viewers. If you think storming a casino to confront a thief sounds reckless for a grandmother, just wait until you hear whose name we used to pin him down and what happened when the cameras started rolling. Trust me, keep listening. We spent 48 hours plotting. Ava crafted a digital trap. Fake investment pitch, lucrative, urgent, wired straight to Clarence's weakest vice, easy money. She disguised her caller ID as a high-rolling Dallas realtor looking to sink cash into waterfront property and needed someone with Gulf Coast know-how. Clarence, ever the peacock, preened at the bait. He agreed to meet at the old sugar plantation ruins upriver. Neutral ground, no security cameras, just Spanish moss swaying like judgment from oak branches. We hid a discreet GoPro among the azalea roots. Marcus tucked a lawyer, his college roommate, now a DA investigator, behind a carriage stone. I waited on the veranda, back ramrod straight, fingers knotting a string of prayer beads older than my marriage. The afternoon sun melted into copper when Clarence strolled up the gravel path, linen suit grazing cane-cut boots, sunglasses mirroring my stiff silhouette. He opened his mouth, maybe to charm, maybe to bluff, but I spoke first, voice sharp as splintered glass. Your luck just ran out, Clarence Eugene Washington. Hand it back. The veranda's floorboards sighed beneath my weight as I squared my shoulders, refusing to yield a single inch of dignity. Spanish moss fluttered above us, a ghost gray curtain that somehow felt like an audience of ancestors gathered to witness Judgment Day. Clarence stopped half a dozen paces away, sunlight scattering across the lenses of his designer shades. He tilted his chin, flashing that familiar gap-toothed grin, a grin that once convinced me to follow him from Baton Rouge's cafes to Charleston's jazz bars, a grin I now recognized as the mask of a practiced thief. My luck? His voice slid out like warm oil. Lorraine, honey, you look radiant. Retirement suits you. Don't you dare speak of my retirement, I snapped, fingers clenching the prayer beads so hard the carved wooden crucifix bit my palm. You emptied 37 years of sacrifice in one afternoon, $200,000. I want it back today. He chuckled low and syrupy. Darling, you know banks make mistakes. Why don't we sit and talk this through? No need for theatrics. That was his first miscalculation, assuming the old days still governed our dance. Before he could utter another syllable, Marcus stepped from behind a crumbling pillar, broad as a linebacker in a charcoal sport coat, phone raised like a scepter. Ava appeared next, sleek in navy slacks, tablet glowing bright blue with bank statements, IP traces, time-stamped screenshots, an irrefutable tapestry of Clarence's deceit. Clarence's grin faltered, the tiniest tremor cracking its surface. He darted a glance toward the azalea bushes, clocking exits, perhaps, or wondering how quickly he could sprint across the lawn in those fancy boots. He never noticed the discreet GoPro nestled beneath the blossoms, its red light winking like a patient metronome. Marcus's tone was calm, almost courteous, yet iron lay beneath every syllable. Afternoon, Dad, or should I say Mr. Washington, we're recording. We've documented the fraudulent withdrawals, forged signatures, and casino chip exchanges. Louisiana statute 1475 covers exploitation of the elderly. Minimum sentence, he paused, watching the blood drain from Clarence's cheeks, 5 years. Ava slid beside my son, her tablet swiveling toward Clarence. But it doesn't have to go that way, she said, voice even silkier than my ex's, though hers carried steel filament beneath. Transfer the full amount now, plus interest, plus attorney's fees, and we sign a private settlement. No criminal charges, no press release. Clarence swallowed. Sweat beaded along his hairline, glistening in the heavy afternoon light. You can't prove intent, he growled, but his gaze flicked to the lawyer emerging from behind a carriage stone. Samuel Ortega, assistant district attorney for Fulton County, badge glinting from his breast pocket. Samuel didn't bother introductions. We have enough for an immediate arrest, Mr. Washington. You leave here today in cuffs or you wire the funds within the hour. He tapped a slim briefcase. Portable printer inside for the settlement. Your choice. Clarence's swagger collapsed like a punctured dirigible. He tugged off his sunglasses, revealing eyes darting back and forth, seeking a loophole that didn't exist. For the first time since our divorce, the mask slipped completely, And I saw not the suave sailor I once adored, but a frightened man cornered by the consequences of his own ambition. He licked his lips, gaze settling on me. "Lorraine," he croaked, "yeah, you know I'd never hurt you. I was going to put it back after I turned a little profit." "Profit?" I barked a laugh that tasted of 16 months of loneliness and shame. "You gambled away my grandchildren's college nest egg. You risked my roof, my medicine, my peace. Profit doesn't begin to cover the theft of a woman's security." Something ancient and fierce rose inside my chest, the collective outrage of widows, teachers, caretakers who'd ever been dismissed as soft. I took one deliberate step closer, prayer beads dangling like a judge's gavel. "Transfer. It. Now." Clarence's shoulders sagged. Deflated, he pulled a phone from his blazer, thumbs tapping the screen with the speed of a man synchronizing his freedom to a loading bar. Marcus mirrored the screen from his own device through a secure banking portal. Ava's handiwork. And we watched, breath held, as digital numbers spun. 205,732.89 landed in my account. Principal, interest, every penny of aggravation quantified. Ava's stylus danced across the settlement PDF. Clarence's signature, shaky but legible, joined the digital ink. Samuel notarized. The GoPro kept rolling. When it was done, an odd hush settled over the veranda, thick as the humidity. Cicadas started their evening symphony, indifferent to the human drama cooling on ancient planks. Clarence's eyes glassed over as though he'd aged 20 years in 20 minutes. I half expected sorrow to tug my heart, memories of wedding vows, shared road trips, the night he'd held our newborn daughter up to the hospital window to show her the moon. But betrayal, I'd learned, calcifies love into something unrecognizable. Still, closure demands articulation. I stepped forward once more, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "You taught me to believe kindness was weakness. You were wrong. It's a shield and a sword, Clarence. And my children know how to wield both." He lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I touched his forearm, not in comfort, but in finality. "I pray you mean that, because the next mercy you receive may have to come from God." Marcus escorted him to the gravel path where a rideshare car waited. Ava had ordered it preemptively, destination his modest condo outside Nachitoches. The man left with nothing but a suitcase and the echo of a family he no longer belonged to. We drove back to my bungalow under a plum-purple sky. The air conditioning struggled against the bayou's breath, and yet, relief pooled cool and sweet behind my sternum. Ava brewed lemon balm tea. Marcus set plates of leftover peach cobbler, its crust still flaky from the morning's bake. A small, ordinary feast tasting richer than any casino bounty. We toasted with chipped mugs. Marcus's smile carried pride and something else. Something tender. "Mama, the money's back, but we want more than that. Move to Atlanta with us. We'll turn the guest suite into your art studio, and Caleb could have story time with you every night." Caleb, my 3-year-old grandson, whose laughter traveled through phone speakers like wind chimes. The offer swelled inside me, a chance to exchange lonely evenings for the warm clutter of family, to trade the echoes of Clarence's betrayal for the daily crescendo of a household alive with love, yet roots run deep. Azaleas, Beagle, the porch swing, Jack built before his heart gave out. These things stitched my identity like patches on a quilt. I opened my mouth to answer, but Ava raised a graceful hand. "Think about it, Lorraine. No rush. Let's get through the legal cooling-off period first. Clarence could still try something." She was right. Thieves rarely surrender a golden goose without dreaming of retaking the nest, and though he'd signed the settlement, I recognized the restless glint in his eye, a gambler's itch, a con man's hunger. He would scheme again. We needed safeguards. Over the next week, our dining room war room transformed into a fortress of contingency plans. Ava shifted my funds into a trust with Marcus and me as joint trustees, inaccessible without dual authentication. Samuel filed a standing restraining order, barring Clarence from contacting me directly. I installed motion sensor lights, updated door locks, and, at Marcus's insistence, took a self-defense refresher at the community center, rediscovering muscles I'd forgotten since retirement parties replaced recess duty. The Sunday after the confrontation, I set out a folding chair beneath the magnolia tree in my front yard, Bible resting on my lap, hoping to read through Ruth before supper. But my thoughts wandered, snagging on a question I hadn't let surface until then. What if Clarence's theft was the symptom, not the disease? A man who once balanced budgets for our household wouldn't risk prison on a whim. Was he drowning in debt? Owing dangerous people? My safety might hinge on understanding the full iceberg beneath the tip we'd shattered. That afternoon, I phoned Caroline Bird, Clarence's second cousin, a hairdresser with the gossip network of a small-town dispatcher. Caroline's salon was closed, but she answered on the third ring, curiosity humming in her greeting. When I explained my reason, her sigh rattled like wind against loose siding. "Girl, you better sit down," she murmured, then spilled a tale of casino markers, payday loan sharks, even rumors of a cryptocurrency scheme Clarence had sunk 50 grand into before it vanished like smoke. Fear prickled my scalp. Predators owed money rarely accepted in IOU. If they came after him and found his pockets empty, they'd follow the scent of where the money had gone, straight back to me. I called Ava and Marcus, relaying the intel. Ava's response was swift and clinical. "We need to ring-fence your house under an LLC, conceal ownership, and move what's left of the trust into a brokerage with layered custodianship. I'll draft paperwork tonight." Marcus booked flights for the following morning. He, Ava, and little Caleb would stay a month, longer if necessary. That evening, as cicadas eased into their sleepy cadence, I locked every window twice and rehearsed the code to my new alarm system until muscle memory replaced uncertainty. My beagle, Jasper, trailed me from room to room, tail wagging though he sensed my tension. Before bed, I knelt beside the patchwork quilt Jack's mother had sewn, whispering the prayer he once murmured on graveyard shifts. "Lord, build a hedge of protection around those I love." 3 nights later, the hedge was tested. At 2:13 a.m., the motion sensor floodlight exploded white across the azalea bushes. Jasper's bark exploded too. Deep. Furious. I jolted upright, heart-ramming ribs. The security panel blinked exterior perimeter breach. Adrenaline steeled my spine. I slipped my feet into sneakers, grabbed the heavy flashlight Marcus insisted I keep by the dresser, and padded into the hallway. Caleb's soft snores drifted from the guest room. Ava and Marcus's door stood ajar, silhouettes already moving. Marcus clutching a metal baseball bat, Ava tapping 911 into her phone. We converged at the front window, careful to stay hidden behind curtains. Outside, 2 figures in hoodies ducked beneath the magnolia, whispering. Moonlight caught a flash of something metallic. A crowbar? My stomach flipped. "Police are en route," Ava mouthed. Marcus gestured for me to remain back, but fury once again eclipsed fear. No one, I thought, will terrorize my family in my own yard. I flicked on the porch switch. Floodlights bathed the lawn, revealing 2 men mid-stride, one tall and gaunt, the other compact with a buzz cut. Startled, they bolted toward the driveway, only to find it blocked by Marcus's SUV. A standoff, seconds long yet stretching endless. Then the smaller man raised his hands, palms out, a pacifying gesture. "We ain't here to hurt nobody," he called, accent thick with Bayou twang. "Just want to talk to Clarence Washington." My jaw tightened. "He doesn't live here," I shouted back. "Leave before the police arrive." The tall intruder spat on the grass, sneer visible even from 20 feet. "He owes Boss Carter 70 grand. We know y'all got his stash. Be smart, old lady. Hand it over and we walk." Ava pressed the phone to her ear, relaying details to dispatch. Marcus stepped onto the porch, bat resting on his shoulder with practiced ease. "This is private property," he boomed, voice carrying preacher-level authority. "Turn around and get off it now." Sirens wailed in the distance, a promise of imminent backup. The men exchanged glances, calculating odds. Jasper barked again, lunging against the screen door, teeth bared. The shorter man flinched. They made their decision simultaneously, sprinting toward the road and vanishing into shadow seconds before 2 patrol cruisers screeched to a halt. Officers fanned out, rifles angled low but ready. Statements were taken, descriptions recorded, tire tracks photographed. The intruders melted into the night, but their message lingered, a dark tendril curling around my reclaimed peace. Clarence's mistake had birthed collateral predators, and they wouldn't vanish simply because sirens scattered them once. Sunlight bled rose gold across the kitchen when I brewed chicory coffee the next morning, exhaustion settling like silt in my bones. Marcus shuffled in, rubbing gritty eyes. "Mama," he murmured, "Atlanta looks safer every hour." I traced steam above my mug, considering. Safety isn't a zip code, baby. It's a circle of people who won't let go, like y'all. I forced a smile, though a storm churned inside. "Besides, those men think Clarence stashed money here. We need to prove he didn't." Ava entered, laptop already under her arm. "Then we trace his debts. We follow the ledger until we know exactly how deep he's buried, and we cut their path to this doorstep." For the second time in a month, my dining room became a command center. Caleb built towers of alphabet blocks between piles of subpoena drafts while we adults chased paper trails through cyberspace. Ava unearthed offshore accounts in Belize, shell corporations registered in Nevada, even a safety deposit box in Houston containing nothing but IOUs. Clarence, it seemed, had been Ponzi scheming himself, robbing Peter to pay Paul, until the Peters outnumbered the Pauls fivefold. The more we uncovered, the clearer our next move became. Expose Clarence's finance web to federal authorities, triggering asset freezes that would negate any whispers of hidden cash. Cutting off his predators at the root was the only way to redirect their vendetta away from my front porch. Marcus drafted an anonymous dossier, screenshots, bank routing numbers, wire transfers, all sourced legitimately through the power of open records requests, leaked statements, and one private investigator Caroline Bird recommended. Samuel, ever the guardian angel, couriered the packet to the FBI's white-collar crimes unit in New Orleans. By the week's end, agents executed warrants. Clarence was arrested outside a pawn shop, cuffed beneath a flickering sign that offered cash for gold. News outlets snatched the story. Local man charged in elderly fraud, multi-state scam. His mugshot ran beside archival wedding photos producers pulled from social media, an ironic split screen of charm and consequence. When the broadcast aired, I sat on my couch with Jasper's head in my lap. Relief didn't burst like fireworks. It seeped slow and steady, as though every pore finally exhaled. Ava squeezed my shoulder. Marcus exhaled a shuddering breath he'd held since July. And yet, viewers, I need you to lean close once more, because justice, like life, rarely wraps itself in tidy bows. The court froze Clarence's assets, but Boss Carter's men knew how to watch television. Their anger wouldn't evaporate simply because the law intervened. The finale, dear friends, is still brewing, and let me tell you, the storm that followed made that plantation showdown look like a Sunday picnic. Stay with me, because you'll discover how a 69-year-old retired schoolteacher turned a criminal threat into a viral lesson in courage for millions, and why the FBI asked me to testify on live television. Trust me, you don't want to miss the twist that saved more than just my money. Faint justice is still justice, my grandmother used to say, but fan the ember long enough, she would add with a sly wink, and it turns into a torch, bright enough to guide strangers home. I never understood the phrase until the morning my phone would not stop humming beneath my pillow. A hive of notifications, buzz on top of buzz, each vibration carrying a new ripple of the same headline: Bayou teacher's ex-husband arrested in multi-state elder fraud. It was 6:30, lavender dawn leaking through the gauzy curtains Marcus had insisted on hanging because, Mama, sheer light starts the day kindly. Kindness felt scarce that morning. Kindness felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. Now that two masked men had prowled my hydrangeas with crowbars, still I rose, pressed bare feet to cool pine planks, and whispered a thank you that none of my family had been harmed. Jasper, tail beating a mellow drum against the baseboard, acted as if the whole ordeal had merely been an overly dramatic squirrel chase. By the time coffee hissed into my favorite cobalt mug, Caleb toddled in wearing dinosaur pajamas, clutching a matchbox ambulance. He didn't understand why Papa Marcus checked every lock 3 times before sunrise, or why Auntie Ava's laptop ran on the kitchen island like a command tower, but he understood applause, so when he thrust the little ambulance at me and declared, Gran, you're a hero," I folded him to my chest and let his giggle fill the hollow places fear had tried to claim. Marcus set the television to the local affiliate. There was Clarence, escorted in shackles, orange jumpsuit hanging on him like wilted marigolds. The crawl beneath the mugshot read, FBI statement expected. Ava, hair swept into a purpose-driven bun, muted the volume and turned to me. Mama Lo, the Bureau's media liaison, called an hour ago. They want you in New Orleans tomorrow to tape a public service segment on elder exploitation. Sort of a cautionary tale meets a victory lap. A dozen objections surged to my lips that I was a retired schoolteacher, not a television pundit, that I still tasted terror when porch lights blazed at night, that I couldn't possibly leave my azaleas unwatered. Yet an older, sterner voice pushed through. Miss Hightower, my own third-grade teacher, who once told me courage is rarely comfortable, but comfort has never changed the world. So I nodded. If they believe my story can spare someone else this nightmare, I'll go. Ava's smile contained both pride and protective worry. We'll drive, daylight only, hotel under an alias. Samuel's arranging marshals for the studio. I laughed then, a short, incredulous puff. Federal bodyguards for a church-going grandmother who still writes grocery lists in cursive? Marcus kissed my forehead. For a woman who brought down a ring of con men and embarrassed a crime boss on live news. We left Baton Rouge past noon, the interstate ribboning along cypress swamps that shimmered like dark glass under the August sun. Caleb sang half-remembered nursery rhymes. Jasper snored on Ava's lap, and I tried not to track every white pickup that hovered in the rearview mirror. At a gas station outside Gonzales, Ava's phone pinged. She frowned at the screen. Untraceable number? Voicemail. Marcus played it over the SUV speakers before I could protest. A voice oozed through low as a gator's growl. Tell the schoolmarm the debt ain't settled. Carter always collects. Silence thickened until Caleb, oblivious, shouted, "Truck!" at an 18-wheeler barreling past. Marcus deleted the message, but not before copying it to Samuel. Fear tasted metallic on my tongue, but anger followed fast, fiercer, hotter. How dare they chase a 69-year-old woman through her own state because another grown man could not pay his gambling tabs? I clasped my rosary, beads warmed by sun and my own pulse, and prayed not for deliverance, but for fortitude to walk through whatever door justice opened next. The PBS station sat 3 blocks from the Superdome, a squat building of brown brick camouflaged by magnolia trees. 2 U.S. Marshals greeted us at the loading dock, their vests discreet beneath sports coats. Inside, makeup artists fussed over my silver curls, dusting translucent powder along laugh lines I had earned honestly in classrooms and church basements. The set resembled an oversized living room, earth-tone couch, turquoise throw pillows, a coffee table staged with hardback books whose spines nobody would read. Under the lights, the air felt thinner. Each breath skimmed nerves raw from nights of broken sleep. Across from me sat Dr. Meredith Hahn, elder rights advocate, eyes kind behind rimless glasses. She squeezed my hand during the countdown. 5, 4, 3. The red light blinked awake. I spoke. I told America how a trusted spouse forged papers, how banks complied, how law enforcement moved slower than hunger, how children with tech savvy and moral backbone cornered a thief without lifting a single fist. I spoke of the 2 intruders, of alarms and floodlights and the privilege and burden of surviving betrayal. Dr. Hahn asked the final question, her voice gentle yet piercing. Mrs. Washington, if you could give one piece of advice to viewers worried about their savings, what would it be? I inhaled, hearing again Miss Hightower's maxim. Don't confuse grace with permission, I said. Love your people, yes, but lock your doors, read the fine print, and teach your children courage, because one day their courage may have to shield you. When the segment wrapped, crew members applauded. I flushed, partly pleased, partly appalled by the glamour stitched to my very real pain. Yet the true surprise came when the floor manager approached, tablet in hand. Ma'am, your interview just posted to our site. 20,000 views in 10 minutes. Comments are flooding in. People want to know how to protect their elders. A mission took form, tentative, but gaining shape like clay turned on a potter's wheel. Perhaps my torch could light paths wider than my own doorstep. We returned to the hotel under dusk's rose gold hush. Marshals swept the hallway, then posted outside room 614, a suite big enough that Caleb could stage dinosaur battles while Ava parsed press requests. I retreated to the balcony, bourbon tea steaming in a china cup, and let the river's distant hush steady my thoughts. That was when the hotel's fire alarm howled. Doors slammed up and down the corridor, evacuation instructions echoing through speakers. The marshals rushed inside, urgency crackling in their radios. Possible diversion, keep VIP in motion. My heart hammered, but training from last week's self-defense class clicked into place. Shoes, bag, ID, go. Marcus scooped Caleb, Ava grabbed Jasper's leash, and we followed the marshals through a staff stairwell that smelled of bleach and decades of spilled secrets. Ground level exit, alley lit only by the flicker of a broken neon over the dumpster. The shorter marshal raised a hand. Halt. A black sedan idled by the curb, engine rumbling, windows tinted midnight dark. Before I could blink, the driver's door opened and a man stepped out, silhouette broad, right hand dangling something long and metallic. Tire iron? Crowbar? The taller marshal drew his service pistol. Federal agents, show your hands. The alley exploded into motion. Ava yanked Caleb behind a stack of hotel linens, Jasper barking like divine outrage on 4 legs. The figure swung the iron, but at the marshal, not us. then ducked into the sedan. Tires screamed. The vehicle shot forward, brushed passing the agent by inches, and roared down Dauphine Street. Sirens erupted blocks away, but the car vanished into quarter traffic. The shorter marshal radioed descriptions. The taller turned, assessing us for injuries. My knees shook, yet fury again outweighed terror. "Carter?" I asked. "Likely," the marshal answered, jaw granite tight. "Your story cost him leverage. He's rattling the cage." Back upstairs, Caleb slept at last, thumb in mouth, unaware how close his world had tilted. Jasper curled beside him, sentinel and stuffed bear in equal measure. In the adjoining room, the adults formed a semicircle. Marcus pacing like a tethered lion, Ava scrolling news feeds, Samuel Ortega on speaker from Atlanta, his voice a disciplined metronome. Samuel's advice: visibility is protection, criminals thrive in shadow. Keep Lorraine public, keep the narrative alive, and Carter's crew loses plausible deniability. Ava lifted an eyebrow. "So we let her go viral?" "Exactly," Samuel replied. "Turn her into the face of anti-elder fraud. Carter won't touch a folk hero." I exhaled a shaky breath. I had spent a lifetime teaching children to find their voice. Could I now use mine at volume for strangers, for policy change, for my own survival? Marcus knelt, taking my hands. "Mama, you once told me fear is only useful if it keeps you alive long enough to finish the work you were born for. Maybe this is your work." I looked at my son, at the man he had become, and I recognized the echo of my late husband's steadiness mingled with my own spine of flint. "All right," I said. "Then we plant the flag high enough for Carter to see from whatever hole he crawls in." Within 48 hours, Ava orchestrated a digital campaign. #GuardGranny, part PSA, part empowerment meme. She clipped my interview into bite-sized reels, added subtitles sized for older eyes, embedded fraud prevention tips between anecdotes of my students sneaking crayfish into lunch boxes. The internet, bless its chaotic heart, devoured the content. Seniors in Phoenix stitched reaction videos praising Miss Lorraine. A banker in Des Moines printed my quote about Grace and taped it to every teller window. Even late-night hosts riffed jokes about the grandma who put Ocean's 11 to shame. With each share, Carter's margin for intimidation shrank. Still, we did not become reckless. Marshals shadowed us to grocery stores. Ava backstopped every hotel alias with 2 dummy reservations elsewhere. And Marcus switched rental cars like a magician's cycling decks. Yet courage breeds purpose. Messages flooded my inbox. Widows unsure if a grandson's investment pitch was real. Retirees whose caretakers demanded blank checks. Church ushers suspicious of a new treasurer. I spent dawns drafting replies, linking resources, and marveling that decades of lesson plans had equipped me for this digital classroom of the vulnerable. 10 days into the campaign, we recorded a live town hall webcast from a Baton Rouge community center. Attendance exceeded fire code. Elders in lawn chairs spilled into hallways, clutching at notepads and pens. Local police formed a perimeter, and yet I felt safer than in my own living room because hope saturated the air like gospel choir harmonies. Mid-session, as I fielded a question about power of attorney abuses, a uniformed officer hurried down the aisle, whispering to the deputy marshal posted near the stage. The marshal stiffened, then leaned into my ear. "Ma'am, we need to move you. Credible threat inbound." Audience members tensed. Whispers ricocheted like marbles. I turned to the microphone. "Friends, please stay calm. Our security team just needs to reposition us for a moment. Your safety is my safety." As staff ushered folks to side exits, Ava's tablet lit with a private feed from outside cameras. 2 SUVs without plates had blocked the parking lot gate. 4 men in hoodies circled the building's back door. Carter had escalated from scare tactics to siege. Marshal Gonzalez, tall, solemn, ex-army, swept me backstage. He handed Marcus a radio. "We're holding the rear corridor, but if they breach, get your mother through the kitchen to the loading dock. SWAT's 5 minutes out." 5 minutes can last longer than whole seasons. We huddled behind stacks of folding tables, the metallic clatter of pans in the adjacent kitchen masking Caleb's little hiccup sobs. Ava hugged him close, murmuring lullabies off-key. Sweat trickled down my spine, yet the same furnace that roared the day of the bank call now roared hotter. These men would not silence me in the very building where we taught elders to defend themselves. A crash, door hinges screeching, footsteps. Gonzalez's voice barked commands, then the pop of a stun grenade reverberated, followed by shouts, the thud of bodies against drywall. I pressed my palms over Caleb's ears. Seconds or centuries later, hard to tell, SWAT thundered past, Kevlar plates and night vision goggles reflecting emergency strobes. A bullhorn announced, "Suspects in custody." We emerged into a corridor haze that smelled of smoke powder and spilled coffee. 4 intruders lay zip-tied, faces pinned to tile. One lifted bloodshot eyes and sneered at me. "Carter sends his regards, Grandma." I met his gaze, not with hatred, but with the stern clarity I once reserved for playground bullies. "Tell Mr. Carter that grandmothers gave birth to every soldier in history. We also taught them right from wrong." Television crews outside captured my sentence. By dawn, that clip had eclipsed the original interview. CNN replayed it on loop under the banner, "Granny Defiant." Attorney General Levi Thornwell phoned personally. The Department of Justice would indict Carter on racketeering, witness intimidation, and conspiracy. My testimony, he said, would anchor the case. Trials are marathons, but sometimes a single witness sets the pace. He asked if I was willing. I answered without hesitation. Yet willingness required preparation. Federal witness protection workshops, rehearsals with prosecutors, even voice coaching so jurors could hear me clearly across a cavernous courtroom. Each session stripped another layer of my old life, leaving me raw yet somehow gleaming, like oak beneath centuries of varnish. One night, back in Atlanta for a brief respite, I rocked Caleb to sleep while Jasper dozed at my feet. Moonlight sliced across the nursery rug, illuminating a construction paper crown Caleb had glittered for me after the town hall debacle. "Queen Courage," it read. Letters uneven but sincere. I traced the glitter glue and wondered when the role of teacher had morphed into torchbearer. Marcus stood in the doorway, voice hushed. "Mama, you should know something. #Guard Granny has raised $27,000 in micro-donations. Seniors want to fund a foundation in your name." A breath caught in my throat. A foundation? "To educate banks, lobby for stronger penalties, build community watch nets," he said. "Real change." I looked down at the sleeping child, cheeks flushed peace pink, and I realized the crossroads was behind me. I had already chosen the path lit by my own roaring furnace. I kissed Caleb's curls and whispered, "Then let's build it, baby. Let's build it so high Carter has to climb to see where his threats landed us." But before brick one of the foundation could be laid, Carter's last gambit struck at the heart of my family. Far from bayous and broadcast lights, I'll learn how he targeted the one person I least expected, and why the showdown moved from courtrooms to church pews, and ended with a confession so shocking it silenced a congregation. Stay with me, friends. Justice sometimes sings its loudest note in the unlikeliest choir. The city lights of Atlanta glimmered beneath the apartment's picture window like a scatter of jewels on black velvet. Yet my thoughts pressed far beyond that horizon, settling uneasily on back roads where danger still hunted in silence. Carter was caged, his foot soldiers arrested, but lessons learned in 69 years reminded me that even broken fangs can draw blood when handled carelessly. I kept vigil in the rocker beside Caleb's toddler bed, Jasper stretched at my feet as though his rib-deep snores could anchor us all. Every shadow across the nursery wall looked suddenly deliberate, and when heating pipes clanged, I found myself rehearsing escape routes. Courage, it turned out, required renewal every dawn. Down the hallway, light glowed beneath Marcus and Ava's door, night owl strategizing. My children were building a foundation in my name while I waited like a sentry, praying their efforts would outpace any remaining threats. At 2:13 a.m., the phone rang. Not my cell, but the landline. Old-fashioned, cord-curled like a slumbering serpent. Caller ID read St. Emmanuel AME Church. My pastor never rang at such an hour unless bones or souls were breaking. "Lorraine," Reverend Porter's voice rasped, louder than the hush around me. "I'm at Grady Hospital with Sister Rita. She was attacked outside choir rehearsal. Says the man asked for you by name." Blood iced in my veins. Sister Rita, stalwart alto and my dearest confidant, would sooner miss sunrise than miss Tuesday choir. What did he want? He told her to deliver a message. "Bring the ledger to the house of the Lord, or more saints will bleed." "Lorraine, what ledger?" My free hand clutched the rosary strung around my wrist. "Ledger? Carter's debts?" Only one person outside law enforcement could imagine it still existed. Clarence. Had prison hardened desperation into collaboration with the very man who threatened him? My stomach churned. "I'll come at once," I whispered. Marcus insisted on driving me to the hospital despite the hour, Ava joining, while a neighbor stayed with Caleb. Neon hospital signs buzzed above automatic doors sliding open on sighs of antiseptic air. We found Reverend Porter in a pastel waiting room where chairs sat like penitent soldiers. He explained Sister Rita's injuries: fractured wrist, bruised ribs, shaken faith. She said the assailant carried a photo of you, Reverend Porter continued, voice rough with weary fury, and he wore a gold tie pin shaped like a playing card spade. A chill danced across my ribs, Carter's signature emblem, according to FBI files. Clarence must have traded information for reprieve, selling scraps of rumor that I held a mythical ledger of his crimes, a book I neither possessed nor desired. "What does Carter want with our church?" Marcus asked. "Sanctuary," Porter answered, eyes dark. "He's planning a spectacle, force you into holy ground, twist righteousness into ransom." We sat in silence until dawn's first gray breath pressed against high windows. Ava's laptop glowed with a map, St. Emmanuel's red brick sanctuary, built before electricity, flanked by an education wing and a fellowship hall whose creaking floorboards memorized generations of potluck footsteps. "If he wants a ledger," Ava said softly, "we give him one, full of blanks, and broadcast his confession instead." Her plan unfurled like a battle standard, a decoy book, hollowed and wired with a transmitter, hidden cameras nestled among choir loft rafters, law enforcement ready to breach once Carter incriminated himself. But I felt a tug deeper than strategy, a quiet prompting older than fear, to walk into the lion's den not just to trap the beast, but to name aloud every harm he had wrought, so the congregation itself could witness truth and choose to break the chain of silence. Sunday arrived sweltering, thick with Georgia heat that rose from pavement in trembling mirages. Word had spread, part rumor, part digital whisper, that the infamous Carter intended to crash worship. The sanctuary overflowed, news crews in the back pews, ushers doubling as crowd control, parishioners fanning themselves with bulletins yet refusing to leave. I sat on the front pew, decoy ledger resting in a woven tote, palms slick, despite prayer. Reverend Porter's sermon opened gentle, thread of forgiveness woven through psalms about shepherds and lost sheep, yet tension crackled beneath every amen. Midway through the second hymn, the tall double doors swung wide. A hush dropped like a stone. Carter entered. Immaculate cream suit, tie-pin glinting spade black, 2 men flanking his shoulders. He walked the center aisle as if it were his coronation, stopping 6 feet from the altar. "Mrs. Washington," he drawled, voice amplified by the stunned acoustics. "You have something of mine." The congregation froze, eyes darting between us. I rose, hands steady, around the tote's straps. "I have something for you," I answered, voice carrying farther than I expected, strengthened by pews of witnesses. Carter smirked. "Bring it here, Grandma. Nice and slow." One bodyguard revealed the barrel of a pistol beneath his jacket. Gasps rippled across pews. News cameras zoomed like hungry insects. Reverend Porter stepped forward, Bible in hand, but I shook my head gently. This burden was mine, or perhaps my calling. I walked past the communion table, each footstep measured, until I stood before the man who had turned revenge into creed. I lifted the decoy ledger. "All you'll ever gain from theft is emptiness," I said, "but maybe emptiness is what you understand." He took the book, flipped it open, hollow pages framing the transmitter, his brow furrowed, confusion giving way to anger. "What game is this?" "The last game," I replied. Overhead, the faintest click signaled surveillance began streaming live to press feeds. "Because everyone here will hear the truth today," Carter laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "You think these fools scare me? They're sheep. I run wolves." I met his gaze, letting every frail wrinkle on my face speak of years endured. "Wolves forget, the shepherd watches." He opened his mouth to retort, but Reverend Porter interjected, booming, "This is holy ground. Confess or depart." Carter sneered, tossing the ledger aside. "Confession is for sinners seeking release. I regret nothing." But at that moment his bravado faltered. Police lights strobed through stained glass, bathing pews in ghostly crimson and sapphire. Officers advanced down side aisles, weapons drawn. Carter's guards raised pistols, yet found red dot sights dancing on their chests. A marshal's voice thundered, "Drop them!" In the confusion, Carter seized me by the arm, hauling me backward toward the choir steps, gun pressed to my ribs. Gasps crescendoed into screams. Reverend Porter shouted for calm. Time stretched thin. I smelled Carter's cologne, vetiver laced with fear. My pulse pounded, but training whispered, Talk, occupy his focus, wait for opening. You sent men to hurt Sister Rita, I said quietly. Why target the innocent? He spat. Collateral. Money's owed. You already ruined Clarence. You broke laws, bones, trust, yet every action tightened the net. The more violence you sow, the more eyes watch. His grip loosened imperceptibly, doubt flickering. Behind us, a choir loft door creaked. A marshal slipped in, silent as dusk. I continued, voice low but urgent. You could still choose mercy, Carter. End this here, walk out alive, face judgment in court, not eternity. For a heartbeat, he hesitated. I felt the tremor in the gun's barrel. And in that heartbeat, the marshal lunged, striking Carter's wrist, sending the pistol clattering across hardwood. Congregants cried out. Officers surged. Carter wrestled, but shackles found him once again. As they dragged him down the aisle, his eyes locked on mine, not rage now, but bewildered exhaustion, as though mercy's possibility hurt worse than defeat. Paramedics ushered Sister Rita, arm in cast, into the sanctuary. She stood beside me while Reverend Porter led a spontaneous hymn, voices trembling, then strengthening into sweet, defiant harmony. The cameras kept rolling, broadcasting not chaos, but community. When the final note faded, Porter invited me to speak. I climbed the pulpit steps, knees weak, yet heart stable, and faced the congregation. Justice, I said, is not a single verdict. It's every small voice refusing silence, every hand extended to shield another. Today you proved that wolves lose when shepherds stand together. Applause rose like rising tide, washing away residual terror. Outside, Carter was transferred into an armored van. Inside, Sister Rita squeezed my hand, tears glistening. Weeks later, headlines declared Carter guilty on all counts. Thanks in part to the sanctuary footage admissible as spontaneous confession. Clarence took a plea, trading testimony for reduced time, his letters from prison apologetic but empty. My mailbox overflowed with letters, grandmothers, bank tellers, even teenagers studying cybersecurity because of Guard Granny. The foundation launched officially the Washington Torch Trust. Its mission, education, advocacy, emergency grants for victims of financial abuse. Marcus left corporate marketing to helm operations, Ava managing digital outreach. Caleb volunteered as honorary chief courage officer, handing out glitter crowns at events. And me? I returned to my bungalow, azaleas pruned, porch swing freshly painted, yet my calendar now filled with workshops, Senate hearings, Sunday school visits, recasting proverbs in the language of fraud prevention. Jasper still chased squirrels. I still canned peach preserves. But beneath ordinary rhythms burned a steady flame, a furnace transformed into lighthouse. One brisk October morning, I stood on the rebuilt steps of St. Emmanuel's Fellowship Hall, ribbon-cutting ceremony for our new Elder Resource Center about to begin. Television crews murmured, choir rehearsed, and Sister Rita, arm-long heeled, pinned a brooch shaped like a tiny silver torch onto my lapel. "From now on," she whispered, "let the wolves know where the light lives." I swallowed the swell of gratitude and faced the audience, older couples, young volunteers, children waving hand-drawn signs, and I realized my grandmother's proverb had completed its arc. The ember fanned into a torch had indeed guided strangers home. But friends, sometimes embers spark anew when least expected. A mysterious envelope arrives bearing Clarence's final secret, a revelation capable of unraveling everything we built and forcing my family to confront betrayal on a level we never imagined. Don't miss the twist that will test whether the Washington torch can withstand the darkest storm yet. The first chill of November crept along Baton Rouge's riverbanks the morning the envelope arrived, so ordinary it nearly vanished beneath a stack of grocery circulars and election flyers. Only the handwriting stopped me cold. A looping cursive I had traced across bills and birthday cards for 40 years. Clarence Eugene Washington. No return address, no postmark city, just my bungalow's number and a postage stamp bearing a faded magnolia. Jasper nosed the packet, tail thumping. I set my coffee mug aside, feeling the porcelain rattle against the countertop as questions collected like storm clouds. Clarence had been sentenced 6 weeks earlier. His plea bargain sealing 5 years in a medium security facility outside Shreveport with strict no-contact provisions. The Bureau of Prisons did not allow stamped envelopes from inmates without monitoring. Someone bent the rules, I whispered. I slit the flap with my thumbnail and drew out a single sheet of lined paper, yellowed as if stashed in a desk for decades. "Lorraine," it began, "if you are reading this, I am gone. My heart stuttered. Gone? I skimmed the next lines. A tangled river of regret. Cancer that started in my liver before the trial, spread faster than hope. Treatments refused because I deserved the pain. Then the crux. Our son doesn't know about the trust I created years ago. One I meant to leave untouched as atonement. Carter found hints of it, God forgive me, and threatened your life to claim it himself. If I die, the trust dissolves and the funds, 200,000 more, revert to Marcus by right, but only if he discovers the key before the new year. Please protect our boy from my sins, 200,000 more, another fortune hidden, this time purportedly for good, yet still dripping with danger. I sank into the kitchen chair, letter trembling in my grasp. Clarence's signature sprawled across the bottom, ink smudged as if tears had wet the page. A postscript followed in smaller scrawl. The key is where you first taught me to dance. Memory flickered. 1973, a hole-in-the-wall blues joint called Betty's Back Porch where a jukebox crooned Etta James and Clarence convinced me. Shy teacher fresh from college, to risk a slow sway beneath strings of colored lights. The bar had closed in the late 80s, the building condemned, the lot now a parking garage according to local gossip. If the key lay in that footprint, time and bulldozers had likely swallowed it. Yet Carter's reach had proven long. If he'd caught wind of the trust, his lieutenants might scour every scrap of Clarence's past. A knock startled me. Ava entered, cheeks pink from the morning breeze, toddler Caleb in tow clutching a plush torch, the Foundation's new mascot. I handed her the letter. Her eyes scanned, widened, then narrowed into strategic focus. We need confirmation Clarence is truly ill, or worse, she said, and we need eyes on that parking garage before Carter's people land there first. Marcus joined via video call from Washington, D.C., where he was lobbying lawmakers for elder protection statutes. The skyline behind him gleamed steel blue. His jaw tightened as Ava relayed the letter. A secret trust? Why wouldn't Dad tell me? He asked, hurt flickering beneath businesslike timbre. Guilt, I answered, and maybe he feared your refusal. My son exhaled. All right, I'll wrap the meetings tonight, fly home tomorrow. Meanwhile, Mom, promise me you won't set foot in that garage alone. I promised, but the furnace in my chest sparked anew, unwilling to leave ghosts unchallenged. That afternoon, Ava and I drove to the old lot, level 2 of the Riverwalk garage, concrete slopes smelling of gasoline and river damp. Wind-whipped leaves into skittering spirals. Ava carried a flashlight. I, Clarence's letter, folded in my pocket like a live coal. We paced the perimeter, searching for any relic of the tavern's bones. Between parking spaces 23 and 24, a hairline crack traced a rectangle in the concrete. Foundation seam, Ava murmured. We knelt. Within the fissure, metal flashed. Ava produced a multi-tool, prying carefully until a rusted Altoids tin surfaced, wedged among decades of dust. Inside lay a miniature brass key, embossed with a clover and a slip of parchment, Unit 7B, Magnolia Safe and Store. Hearts racing, we photographed the cache, replaced it, and resealed the crack with epoxy from Ava's emergency kit, hoping to mask our discovery. Carter might already know this clue, Ava warned, and we hurried away, unaware of the camera lens glinting behind a distant column. The self-storage facility squatted on the edge of town, a warren of metal roll-up doors painted swamp green. Ava hacked the customer database from her tablet as we idled outside. Unit 7B was indeed registered to Clarence W., prepaid for 20 years. She reserved a unit across the aisle under an alias, our staging ground, then called Samuel Ortega, now special counsel to the Washington Torch Trust. Samuel advised discretion. Enter at off-peak. Bring a marshal. If Carter's network tracks the key, you'll need federal authority to secure any assets. But bureaucracy plotted, and fortune favors the alert. At 4:30 a.m., we returned with Marshal Gonzalez, towering, unflappable, his cruiser unmarked. Fog curled like phantoms between storage rows. Gonzalez unlocked 7B. The overhead bulb flickered on, revealing a single fireproof chest bolted to the floor. My pulse drummed as the brass key slid home. Click. Inside sat stacks of account ledgers, bearer bonds dating back to 1990, and a sealed envelope addressed, "To Marcus, upon my passing." Gonzalez cataloged contents, photographing serials. "This is evidence now, ma'am, until probate clears." But as he spoke, tires screeched outside, headlights slicing fog. A pickup rammed the facility gate. 2 figures jumped out, ski-masked, brandishing shotguns. "Down!" Gonzalez barked. Ava and I ducked behind the doorframe as buckshot peppered metal walls. Sirens wailed from Gonzalez's radio, backup summoned but miles away. Adrenaline honed my senses razor sharp. Through the gap, I glimpsed the assailant's shoulder patches. A black spade. Carter's pack had found us. Gonzalez returned fire, his bullets pinging against the truck's engine block. One gunman cursed, retreating to reload, giving us seconds. Ava shoved the chest toward me. Take the envelope, run to Unit 9C, bolt inside. I hesitated. And you? She flashed that gospel choir resolve. Guard the evidence, Mama Lo. Go. I snatched the envelope, sprinted into swirling fog, Jasper's obedience training whistle ringing silent in my memory. Zigzag, stay low. Gunfire cracked, echoing like thunder in tin canyons. At 9C, I rolled the door down, heart hammering, and pressed my back to corrugated steel. Within the envelope, a safety deposit key gleamed silver, tagged Bayou Union Bank, Box 1776. And a note. Marcus, I failed you once. This is my attempt to stand guard, even in absence. Spend it wisely, for your mother's torch and your son's tomorrow. Tears blurred ink. Outside, sirens crescendoed, engines roared away. A door banged. Ava's voice. All clear. Gonzalez appeared, arm grazed but steady. They fled. Facility cameras caught plates. We'll track them. Relief sagged my knees, yet the battle had escalated. Carter's network would stop at nothing for the hidden fortune. We needed Marcus, lawyers, and more than courage. We needed airtight strategy before the New Year deadline swallowed the trust whole. Marcus arrived that night, eyes shadowed but determined. We debriefed in the bungalow, maps and files strewn across the dining table, reminiscent of earlier war rooms. Caleb slept clutching his plush torch, Jasper curled beneath, protective. The bank key changes everything, Marcus mused, Jay. If funds sit in deposit box 1776, we must petition probate court for emergency access, transfer assets to the Torch Trust before Carter can claim them as restitution for fraudulent debt. Samuel joined via video, outlining legal labyrinths. Probate judges could freeze accounts for months. Carter's lawyers might file creditor claims, muddying waters, and Clarence's impending death, unverified, could alter timelines. We need proof of life or death, Samuel concluded. Tomorrow I'll visit Shreveport Prison Infirmary. If Clarence is terminal, compassionate release may occur sooner than probate. The notion twisted my heart, anger and lingering tenderness coiling. I had lost the man I married long before his crimes, yet grief resurfaced at the specter of finality. At 2:59 a.m., alarms shrieked through my bungalow. Front window shattered, a brick skidded across hardwood, wrapped in paper scrawled, "Torch this, Grandma." Flames licked curtains where a Molotov cocktail had failed to ignite fully thanks to faulty rag. Marcus doused fire with a blanket while Ava herded Caleb to safety. Police found no trace of the arsonist beyond boot prints leading to the bayou's edge. Fear once more threatened to choke, but fury burned hotter, forging resolve anew. I addressed the media dawn that very day, standing on my porch amid boarded glass, holding up Clarence's letter and the forged brick. This intimidation will not silence the Washington torch, I declared. We will use every cent of this disputed trust to educate, protect, and defend seniors against predators, financial or violent. Wolves beware, the shepherds are organized. News anchors replayed it hourly. Carter's camp responded through back channels, veiled threats, hush money offers. We ignored them, pressing legal levers faster. Ava's social team mobilized in Shepherd's Rise. Donations tripled overnight. 2 days later, Samuel phoned from Shreveport. Clarence had slipped into coma, liver cancer metastasized beyond intervention. Prison chaplain would notify next of kin upon passing. Through tear-blurred exhaustion, I realized forgiveness is a paradox. The door swings inward before it can swing outward. I whispered a prayer for a man whose last act had been to safeguard what he once stole. But even comatose, Clarence remained a chess piece. Carter's lawyers cited medical reports, petitioning to garnish the trust as inheritance to settle fictitious markers. Court hearing set for December 20th, 10 days shy of the dissolution clause. We had 1 month to prove the trust's rightful purpose and transfer, or risk losing everything, including the foundation's credibility. The courtroom becomes our battlefield. Forged documents, surprise witnesses, and a revelation hidden in Clarence's final heartbeat threatened to flip victory into ruin. Stay with me, friends. The flame may flicker, but the Washington torch has yet to face its fiercest wind. Courtrooms smell like old paper and older worries, polish over pine, anxiety baked into paneling by decades of whispered verdicts. Yet when I pushed through the double doors of the East Baton Rouge Parish Civil Division on the morning of December 20th, the scent that struck me first was gardenia. Sister Rita had tucked a sprig into the lapel of my navy suit, a living reminder that prayer can bloom in the starkest soil. The gallery pulsed with reporters, donors, parishioners who had driven in before dawn, and elders from retirement centers carrying hand-lettered signs, "Protect the torch, and elders deserve justice." Their presence both steadied and weighted me. I felt their hopes settle across my shoulders like a quilt, stitched from fragile threads. Lose today, and the quilt wrists unraveling. Judge Eloise Bertrand presided, silver-haired, reputation for tempering mercy with razor logic. Carter's side occupied the defense tables. 3 attorneys in bespoke charcoal, faces angular as their arguments. The lead counsel, Sterling Vance, rose when we entered, his eyes flicking over Marcus, Ava, Samuel Ortega, and finally me. He offered a smile polished to chrome and just as cold. "Ready?" Samuel asked, adjusting his glasses. My nod felt heavier than it should. Gavels rapped, proceedings commenced. Vance wasted no time. "Your Honor, we contend that the decedent, Clarence Washington, held substantial debts to my client, Mr. Carter. Under Louisiana statute, creditor claimed supersede unprobated trusts. We petition immediate transfer of assets to satisfy those debts." Samuel rose smoothly. "Respectfully, the so-called debts are unsubstantiated gambling markers, promissory notes lacking signatures, stamped with the logo of an unlicensed offshore casino. Meanwhile, the Washington Torch Trust is a registered nonprofit dedicated to elder fraud prevention, with Clarence's funds designated explicitly for public good." Vance shrugged. "Intentions aside, the law is clear." He produced a dossier thick as a phone book. "We have eyewitness affidavits of Clarence acknowledging his liability. We also have this." He lifted a flash drive. "Video testimony recorded before Mr. Washington's death, affirming he owed the money and instructing that the trust be used to pay Carter first." A collective gasp rippled through our supporters. My stomach pitched. Clarence's letter had implied atonement, not capitulation. Could he have recanted under duress? Judge Bertrand accepted the drive. "We'll review authenticity." She turned to Samuel. "Your response?" Samuel requested temporary recess for forensic analysis. The judge granted 45 minutes. Court adjourned to murmurs. In a side conference room, Samuel's laptop whirred, while Ava's fingers danced across keys. She imported the video. Clarence in prison infirmary, gaunt but alert, speaking directly to camera. "I instruct that any remaining funds first repay Carter." The timestamp read December 15th. After his coma, impossible. "Deep fake?" Marcus asked. Ava zoomed, toggling waveform. Voice print 95% match, but artifacting around mouth frames could be synthetic overlay on archival footage. Samuel contacted an expert at LSU. Remote analysis confirmed splice indicators, jitter where data bit rates shifted. Judge Bertrand, however, would need indisputable proof. We also needed a counterweight. Clarence had left only one authenticated message, the letter and the envelope to Marcus. Suddenly I remembered the prison chaplain. He said Clarence requested last rites. The chaplain might have heard his true intention. Samuel's brow lifted. "Hearsay, but if we can corroborate with facility logs..." He dialed, securing chaplain deposition via video in 30 minutes. Gavel. Court reconvened. Samuel moved to suppress the video, presenting forensic anomalies. Judge Bertrand studied side-by-side frame captures. Ava projected pixel borders misaligned, audio spectrogram irregularities. Vance objected, claiming technical misunderstanding. The judge ordered neutral state IT to examine but allowed conditional inclusion for context. Next, Samuel introduced Chaplain Moore via live feed. The chaplain, gentle-eyed, testified that on December 10th, Clarence had confessed fear for my life and begged to ensure remaining wealth protected Lorraine's mission. No mention of Carter's debts. Vance pounced. And yet he filmed a video 5 days later contradicting this alleged confession. Chaplain Moore frowned. "Mr. Washington was unconscious after the 12th. I administered last rites on the 14th during coma. He never woke again." A hush fell. Jurors scribbled. Samuel submitted medical charts verifying coma dates. Vance demanded handwriting expert on the letter's authenticity. Expert confirmed Clarence's script, ink age consistent, but Vance wasn't finished. He called a surprise witness. Clarence's former cellmate, Reggie Slim Duvall, shackled, escorted by guards. Slim testified Clarence often boasted of owing Carter, but trusting Carter would take care of Lorraine in exchange for cash. My pulse hammered. Lies sprayed like squid ink to cloud water. Cross-examination, Samuel dismantled Slim's credibility. History of perjury, early parole contingent on cooperation with Carter's lawyers. Still, seeds of doubt scattered. During lunch recess, Ava's phone pinged. A message from our digital volunteers monitoring #Shepard's Rise inboxes. An anonymous tipster had emailed a link. Clarence, Washington, true final statement. Metadata traced to prison infirmary router. Heart racing, we played it. Clarence's weak voice. If Carter gets this, he'll kill Lorraine. This trust is for the torch only. Marcus, son, forgive me. The clip cut abruptly but bore date stamped December 12th, 3 a.m. After he slipped into coma? No. Exact middle of the night, he fell unconscious. We time-synced hospital vitals. Monitors showed spike in heart rate at that hour, followed by decline. He must have filmed secretly with contraband phone, chain of custody hazy, yet if we corroborated network logs and device IDs, the clip could shatter Vance's fake. Samuel prepared emergency motion. Judge Bertrand, pressed for closure, allowed late evidence pending verification. State IT cross-referenced device MAC address from seized contraband sweep. Match confirmed. Vance objected violently, but the tide shifted. The judge recessed to deliberate. 30 nerve-shredding minutes later, Judge Bertrand returned. She ruled Carter's video inauthentic, declaring systematic attempt to defraud this court. Carter's creditor claim dismissed with prejudice. Assets of Clarence Washington Trust to transfer to Washington Torch within 48 hours. Cheering erupted. Elder audience members wept. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. Judge Bertrand wasn't finished. She referred Carter's legal team for criminal investigation and issued bench warrants for both gunmen from storage attack, linking them via ballistics. Court adjourned to thunderous applause. Outside, cameras flashed like summer lightning. I spoke briefly. Justice prevailed because community refused to cower. Clarence's final gift will now guard those predators sought to devour. Yet jubilation tangled with grief. Clarence's death became official 2 days later, the chaplain calling to say he slipped away peacefully at dawn. I attended the modest burial. Few gathered besides prison ministry volunteers. I laid a single magnolia bloom on the pine coffin. Rest, Clarence, I whispered, letting decades of love and hurt settle like silt on riverbed. Part of my story, not my anchor. On Christmas Eve, the bank manager of Bayou Union personally escorted us to safe deposit box 1776. Inside, cashier's checks totaling $212,000, vintage coins, and a note. For Caleb's college, for Lorraine's porch swing repaint each spring, for the torch, never let it dim. We signed transfer documents. Funds moved into an endowment seeded by public donations, now surpassing $500,000. The Washington Torch Trust hired staff, launched statewide workshops, partnered with credit unions to install fraud alert kiosks. But winter's peace proved brief. Marcus, Ava, Caleb, and I gathered on my porch, string lights twinkling, Jasper begging for ham scraps. Fireworks crackled across bayou skies when a courier approached with registered letter, State of Nevada versus Washington Torch. Inside a lawsuit, Carter's Shell Casino alleging defamation and business losses. Samuel's phone rang simultaneously. They filed in Las Vegas federal court. Plaintiff seeks injunction freezing trust assets pending trial. My shoulders sagged, but only a moment. If wolves couldn't eat the torch, they aimed to snuff it by litigation attrition. I met my family's eyes. Exhaustion warred with resolve, yet resolve won. Then we pack our bags for Nevada, I said. The torch travels. Marcus laughed, weary but fierce. Shepard's Rise, mama. Sin City's neon welcomes us into a courtroom circus where gambling moguls, cyber forensic prodigies, and a repentant gunman collide. One misplaced testimony could bankrupt the torch forever, or ignite a national movement capable of rewriting elder protection law. Buckle up, friends. The brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. Las Vegas rose out of the desert like a mirage that refused to vanish no matter how many times I blinked against the glare. Neon bled into dawn, pooling at the base of glass towers that seemed too proud to remember the sand beneath their foundations. In the rental car's back seat, Caleb hummed a Christmas song a month late, waving his plush torch at every passing billboard, while Jasper sprawled across my feet with the fatalistic calm only a beagle can wear on a cross-country drive. We had covered 1,800 miles in 3 days, switching drivers, aliases, and motels whenever Samuel's security app pinged an alert about our digital shadows. Each night, I watched the desert sky and told myself that stars look the same no matter where wolves prowl beneath them. Each dawn, I found the resolve to follow those stars a little farther west. The courthouse sat 1 block off the strip, a marble monolith flanked by palms whose fronds trembled beneath casino draft vents. Protesters and paparazzi already clustered at the barricades, some chanting for elder justice, others brandishing placards that read, "Free the house," as if the money we protected belonged to the roulette wheels rather than frail hands counting pill bottles. Ava guided Caleb through the throng, Marcus kept pace beside me, and Samuel briefed 2 Nevada marshals who would shadow us during the hearing. Inside, fluorescent lights replaced neon but did little to soften the heat of conflict. Carter himself was absent, held without bail on federal intimidation charges, yet his influence seeped beneath doors and into air vents, a sour scent of privilege clinging to every dark-suited lawyer staffing the plaintiff's bench. Their lead was a woman named Marlene Dax, rumored to negotiate with the warmth of dry ice, her lipstick the shade of litigation blood. Judge Franklin Renner, younger than Bertrand, but reputedly more impatient with theatrics, called the room to order and set strict limits. 12 days for arguments, no continuances, and any party engaging in intimidation would face contempt and possible criminal referral. His gavel crack echoed like a starter pistol. Our first witness was Detective Hightower from Baton Rouge, flown in overnight. He testified to ballistic matches linking Carter's gunman to the storage unit attack, but Dax peppered him with questions that dripped plausible deniability. Was the black spade really Carter's symbol, or merely a popular playing card motif? Could ballistics have been swapped? By the time she finished, even I struggled to remember that Hightower's report remained unshaken. Samuel countered by introducing forensic accountant Dahlia Kim, a prodigy whose resume included exposing crypto laundering rings before her 25th birthday. She mapped money flows from offshore wallets to Carter's Shell Casino, then to a Las Vegas law firm's escrow account, earmarked for evidence acquisition. Her voice never rose, yet each slide landed like a stone dropped into still water, ripples of implication lapping at Dax's composure. During recess, Dahlia joined us in a windowless conference room that smelled faintly of stale coffee and fresh toner. She traced arcs on her tablet, explaining how she had identified a secondary wallet cluster that activated precisely whenever our foundation posted large fundraising gains, someone betting against our success in real time. Marcus looked stricken. Ava looked ready to launch a cyber war. I felt the old furnace blaze hotter. Enemies had moved from crowbars to keyboards, but their goal remained: dim the torch until elders stumbled in darkness once more. As dusk fell, we returned to our hotel, a modest tower deliberately chosen for its distance from the strip's spectacle. A lone figure waited by the service entrance, hands raised in surrender the moment marshals approached. It was the shorter gunman from the storage attack, name later recorded as Lionel Shortstack Reyes, unmasked and trembling. "I need to talk," he stammered, eyes flicking from Caleb to my lapel pin. "Carter left me hanging. He'll kill me next. I'll testify." The marshals whisked him inside for debrief. Over lukewarm burgers in a security suite, Lionel detailed everything. Carter's Lieutenant Dax orchestrating fake deepfakes, bribes to Slim, and a plan to plant forged ledgers in my luggage on day 3 of trial to claim obstruction. He handed over a flash drive containing phone backups, texts, voice memos, even a video of Carter boasting that Granny's glow will dim when the house calls in its debt. Samuel spent half the night vetting the data before filing an emergency motion. Judge Renner granted an evidentiary hearing first thing, issuing temporary gag orders on both parties. Dax's veneer cracked for the first time when the marshal served her, but she requested a recess to verify chain of custody. Renner granted 30 minutes only. We stepped into the corridor just as Caleb toddled up, waving a paper crown fashioned from courthouse notepads. "Gran, you're winning," he whispered, as if it were a secret that required soft delivery. I knelt to eye level and felt the crown settle over my curls, a flimsy wheat sheaf of hope that somehow weighed more than gold. The next morning began with rain, rare and cleansing, streaking courthouse glass like silver threads. Inside, Dax surprised everyone by stipulating to the authenticity of Lionel's files before Samuel could play them. She pivoted. If Carter's intimidation had tainted her client's standing, perhaps a settlement could protect the integrity of Nevada's gaming industry and provide a mutually beneficial resolution. But her proposal dangled poison. The torch could keep Clarence's funds only if we signed a non-disparagement agreement muzzling any future mention of Carter, his shell companies, or elder exploitation within casino spheres. In short, hush money and legal wrapping. Marcus's jaw tightened. Ava's eyes flashed. Samuel looked to me for final word. I remembered Sister Rita's ribs, the shattered window, the Molotov on my hardwood. I removed the paper crown, smoothed the crinkles, and placed it on the council table where cameras could see. My answer is the same one Clarence finally chose, I said, voice steady. We speak truth, we hold light, no deal. Gasps fluttered, Dax's lips pressed thin. Judge Renner set closing arguments for 48 hours hence, warning he would brook no further stalling. That night, our hotel suite felt tighter than Baton Rouge's shotgun houses of my childhood. Dahlia tapped code beside the window, searching for fresh cyber traps. Lionel slept under martial guard in the adjacent room. Jasper paced restless. Caleb clutched his torch and asked whether wolves lived in deserts. I told him wolves live anywhere there's shadow, but shepherds can carry lamps anywhere there's road. At 3 a.m., Dahlia's laptop chimed. Another attack. Someone had attempted to drain the torch escrow via a spoofed emergency payroll. She blocked it with minutes to spare, but traced the attempt to a server farm owned by the same law firm funding Carter's defense. Evidence enough to pierce attorney-client privilege if Judge Renner agreed. In court, Dahlia testified, presenting server logs and IP hops with the clarity of a schoolteacher diagramming arithmetic. Dax sputtered objections that fell limp when Renner compared the timestamps with security cam footage of associate attorneys logging into the building. Contempt hearings loomed large. Electrons, threats, bullets. Carter's arsenal shrank with each failure, and yet I felt no triumphant lift. I felt weary, longing for calico mornings on my porch. But weary is not the same as finished. So I wrote a statement for Samuel to read in closing, words carved from every letter seniors had mailed to the torch, each sentence a braid of their fears and our collective resolve. On the 12th day, Judge Renner called the courtroom to hush so deep I heard my own pulse in my ears. Samuel spoke first, weaving forensic trails and witness courage into a tapestry that ended with my statement, its closing line a promise. A torch burns brighter when passed from unsteady hand to steady, not when hidden under a house built on sand. Dax offered a rebuttal heavy on economic freedom and personal responsibility, but light on human cost. Her words skittered across polished wood and fell flat. Renner deliberated only an hour. He ruled for the torch on every count, levied sanctions on Carter's team, froze their casino assets pending federal inquiry, and referred evidence of cyber crimes to the Department of Justice. Applause erupted. Marshals trying and failing to quiet retirees whooped and waved handkerchiefs embroidered with phoenixes and torches. Outside, rain had cleared. The desert smelled new, as though someone had cracked open the earth to rinse old scenes away. Cameras clustered, but before microphones reached us, I lifted Caleb onto my hip. Jasper barked at a rainbow half strung over the strip's kaleidoscope. Reporters shouted forecasts of national reform bills. Marcus mentioned a Senate invitation. Ava teased expansion of a shepherd's rise into a global network. I simply breathed, letting neon and cloudlight blend until they formed a color I'd never seen, a color I decided to call renewal. Yet renewal is an action, not an end. That night, long after Caleb dreamed and Jasper dozed, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A text popped onto the screen. The house never stops. Check your back porch, Granny. I crept to the suite's sliding door and drew aside the curtain. On the balcony lay a single playing card, the ace of spades, edges singed, a faint smear of ash pointing east toward Baton Rouge. My furnace flared, but fear did not rise. Purpose did. I turned, opened my laptop, and drafted a press release announcing Torch chapters launching in every state by next summer. The card remained outside, curling in night wind, but its threat had lost teeth. Wolves had sent a calling card, shepherds had already planned a city of lamps tomorrow we would begin building. And somewhere, just beyond the glow, another ember waited to be fanned into light. But that is a tale for the final part, friends, where the torch learns to shine without me, and the wolves find there is nowhere left to hide. Morning stretched across the Las Vegas Valley in pale ribbons, the kind of dawn that seems to hold its breath before committing to daylight. I stood on the hotel balcony, watching commuters merge onto I-15 like beads sliding along a rosary, each one whispering its own prayer to arrive safely, to be seen, to matter. Behind me, Marcus brewed chicory coffee in the kitchenette. The scent drifted out, grounding me in small comforts, even as my mind sprinted months ahead. The Torch's victory in court had triggered a media surge so fierce our foundation's servers crashed twice overnight. Donations climbed faster than Ava's tracker could refresh, but with money came responsibility. Programs to design, staff to hire, partnerships to forge with banks and neighborhood associations from Maine to Maui. The task felt colossal, yet instead of intimidation, I felt a humming eagerness, as though my life's puzzle pieces had finally clicked into their intended mosaic. I pressed a palm to the glass door, tracing the outline of the singed ace of spades still curled on the balcony table. Its soot-smudged imagery no longer frightened me. It reminded me purpose always invites resistance, and resistance keeps purpose honest. Wolves would retreat, regroup, and test new avenues of darkness, but shepherds could learn, adapt, and carry lamps no storm could extinguish. A gentle thud at the sliding door broke my reverie. Caleb, pajama rumpled, held Jasper's leash in one hand and his plush torch in the other. He tilted his head the way children do when studying grown-up moods. Gran, he lisped. Are we going home today? Home. A word stretched by recent miles, yet still tethered to my azalea bushes and porch swing. I knelt, ruffling his curls. Soon, little light, but first we help some friends set up their lamps. He accepted this with solemn nod, as if lamp setting ranked alongside brushing teeth and tying shoes. The hotel conference room buzzed by 8. Dahlia projected a map speckled with red pins, each a community center requesting torch workshops. Samuel summarized fresh legislation drafted overnight by a senator eager to ride our wave. Harsher penalties for elder fraud rings, incentives for banks that adopt guardian alerts, federal grants for digital literacy classes. Marcus's eyes shone. Ava's fingers flew, adding calendar blocks and task owners to a shared board. A knock interrupted, the marshals escorting Lionel Reyes. His plea deal required a formal debrief on Carter's wider network. Wearing county-issue khakis and a haunted expression, he sank into a chair opposite me. I offered coffee. He declined, palms trembling. I owe you an apology, ma'am, he murmured. Didn't know collateral could smile and carry toys. Collateral never should, I replied, meeting his gaze until he looked away. Help us make sure it never happens again. He did. Over 3 hours, Lionel sketched hierarchies, Bitcoin wallets, safe houses in half a dozen states. Dahlia cross-checked in real time, green dots blinking as each breadcrumb aligned with her previous findings. By noon, the Department of Justice liaison on speakerphone had enough to expand indictments. Lionel's future shifted from decades behind bars to a witness protection cabin somewhere with more pine than neon. After he left, fatigue slid over me like evening shade. I excused myself to the balcony again, needing air unshared with legal pads. Below, Vegas already reheated to midday glare, but a faint breeze tugged my blouse, carrying distant music, street performers warming trumpets. Their notes wove through traffic noise, through the clatter of hotel HVAC units, until they formed a melody I danced to once at Betty's back porch. I closed my eyes, picturing Clarence's lopsided grin the night we first swayed. Grief rose then, unexpected, raw, a wave traveling continents to crash against my ribs. Clarence's betrayals had taken so much, yet his final acts had also unlocked this cascade of good, the paradox of human hearts, capable of wreckage and redemption, sometimes within the same breath. I let the ache wash over me until it ebbed into bittersweet calm. When I returned inside, the team reviewed travel plans. We would split, Marcus and I flying to Baton Rouge to relaunch local efforts and tend the bungalow, Ava and Dahlia heading to D.C. for Senate meetings, Samuel bouncing between regional offices. Caleb would stay with me until preschool resumed. Jasper, of course, went where I went. Our flight home felt surreal, gliding above deserts that just days earlier we'd sliced through on asphalt. Caleb fell asleep against my shoulder, plush torch clasped to his chest, tiny fingers curled around the stitched flame. I watched cloud shadows parade across canyons and thought about torches. How flame needs oxygen, how too tight a grip can smother it, how letting it breathe allows it to leap higher. Leadership would require that kind of open-handed flame keeping. The Baton Rouge air hugged us thick and familiar upon landing. At my bungalow, neighbors had left welcome home flowers on the steps, and the local youth group had repainted the porch swing a cheerful teal. I sank into its curve that evening, listening to cicadas allow the torch's possibilities to sharpen into commitments. The next weeks blurred into action. Town halls brimmed, seniors lined up for free financial checkups. We trained librarians to spot phishing scams, partnered with credit union interns to host Grand Tech Saturdays, where teenagers taught elders to navigate smartphones. Each story of newfound confidence in a retiree's voice felt like adding another lamp to the growing constellation. One damp February dawn, Ava texted, "Bill passes committee unanimously, on to full Senate next week." I forwarded the news to our volunteers. Celebratory emojis cascaded, yet shadows persisted. Anonymous emails dripped threats, lawsuits from shell entities arrived monthly before dissolving, and I occasionally spotted spade graffiti near ATM machines. Reminders the wolves bruised but breathing. I refused security fatigue. Instead, I scheduled free self-defense workshops taught by martial arts instructors who donated time after hearing Caleb's wolves and lamps analogy. Spring unfurled magnolia blooms exactly the hue of the postage stamp on Clarence's final letter. Sister Rita and I planted a gardenia bush outside the fellowship hall in memory of choir nights interrupted by violence. Its scent wafted through evening Bible studies, subtle yet insistent. Caleb turned 4 that May. We hosted a picnic on the church lawn. Elders played cornhole alongside toddlers, and Dahlia live-streamed the party so donors could witness the torch's local roots. Later, as twilight powdered the sky, Caleb scampered up with a cardboard box wrapped in crayon scribbles. "For you, Gran," he declared. Inside lay a handcrafted lantern, popsicle sticks, tissue paper panels, battery tea light glowing soft gold. He had stenciled the words, "Shepherd's Rise," across one side. My throat thickened. Tears blurred the lantern's gentle glow. "Will it help the torch?" he asked. I knelt, lantern between us. "Yes, my love, because every little light adds up." Summer approached. Senate passed the Elder Shield Act, news outlets naming it after our movement. President poised to sign. Dahlia's map now sparkled with blue pins, too. International organizations requesting guidance. The torch prepared to cross oceans. I drafted succession plans, aware no flamekeeper holds the lamp forever. In July, government soldiers escorted Carter into federal courtroom for his own trial. I testified via video, choosing not to attend in person. I had shepherds to train that day. Jury convicted on all counts. Sentence, 30 years. Reporters phoned for comment. I offered none beyond justice clarifies the path, mercy elevates the traveler. The day after sentencing, a padded envelope arrived with federal markings. Inside, the Ace of Spades card, edges sealed in plastic bag as evidence, returned to me by request. I placed it in the foundation lobby, framed beneath etched glass beside Clarence's original letter, artifacts of darkness harnessed for light. That evening, I sat on the porch swing, dusk, cicadas easing into chorus. Jasper snored by my feet. Caleb chased fireflies. Marcus drafted grant proposals at the kitchen island. I thought of torches again, not as singular blazing staffs, but as a relay, flame passing ear to ear through generations. I rose, walked to the gardenia bush, clipped one fragrant bloom, and tucked it behind my ear. Then, I joined Caleb on the lawn, swirling a mason jar to catch light in motion, remembering my grandmother's proverb, "Fan an ember long enough, and it becomes a torch bright enough to guide strangers home." My work was not finished, it would never truly finish, but the path ahead glowed steady and shared. Wolves might linger at the edge of that light, yet now millions of shepherds stood ready, each with lantern in hand, each learning that courage multiplies like candle flames. And somewhere, perhaps on a front porch in another town, someone felt the sting of betrayal and wondered if justice could ever turn heartbreak into purpose. For that stranger, our lamps would shine. I looked at Caleb's jar, firefly flickering like a star made small enough to hold, and whispered a promise to the night sky, "The torch will not dim. Not on my watch, and not on the watch of those who come after." The cicadas agreed, the gardenia nodded, and the swing creaked a gentle amen, welcoming tomorrow's dawn and every ember it would bring. Friends, we've reached the end of Lorraine's journey. Now let's unpack it together. Below are a few questions I know many of you will be asking, plus my candid answers. After listening, jump into the comments and tell us if any of these hit home or add your own questions so we can keep the conversation glowing. Why didn't Lorraine just let the police handle everything from the start? Because early reports often stall. Banks insist on paperwork, detectives juggle caseloads, and predators count on that delay. Lorraine's family filled the gap with evidence the police could act on quickly. Lesson: keep meticulous records, screenshots, timestamps, witness names, so law enforcement can move faster for you. Couldn't Clarence's stolen money have been recovered through insurance? Technically, yes. Some accounts include fraud protection, but policies exclude withdrawals done in person with forged IDs or powers of attorney. That loophole drives many elder scams. Always verify every withdrawal alert immediately and demand two-factor authentication on all high-value accounts. Is it realistic to form a foundation that quickly? A grassroots nonprofit can register in days if volunteers donate time and lawyers waive fees. What made the torch explode was viral attention. Ordinary viewers amplified Lorraine's story, forcing institutions to help. Your social media share can be as valuable as a check. What legal documents would have protected Lorraine beforehand? A revocable living trust with dual trustees, a durable power of attorney, naming someone trustworthy, not an ex-spouse, written instructions at the bank requiring voice or video verification for any large withdrawal. If you're over 50, or caring for someone who is, talk to a lawyer about these today. Q5. How do I spot wolves online? Look for sudden urgency, secrecy, and requests to move communication off a secure platform. And remember, legitimate institutions never threaten loved ones, demand gift cards, or insist you keep silent. Your turn, let's talk in the comments. Have you or someone you know ever faced financial manipulation? Share what happened and how you dealt with it. Your experience could save a neighbor. Which moment in Lorraine's story inspired you most? Was it Marcus's digital sleuthing, Ava's courtroom strategy, or Lionel's change of heart? Tell us why. What torch of knowledge or kindness will you pass on this week? Drop a simple action, checking on an older relative, teaching a friend about two-factor logins, donating to an elder aid group. Scroll down, add your voice, and read what others have posted. We reply to as many comments as we can. This channel is a community, not a monologue. Remember, every shared story becomes another lantern on the path, making it harder for wolves to hide. Thank you for keeping the light alive. See you in the replies.